Hey there, fellow prosers, and welcome to the first video in my brand new channel. From my background, you can probably guess that this was meant to be a Halloween video, but life had other ideas. And after reading this book, there was no way I could sit on my thoughts until next year. So here we are, a month late, and ready to talk about Coraline. But is anyone really disappointed? Coraline was such a popular book that it only took them 7 years to make a movie about it. That's insane. However, anyone familiar with Neil Gaiman's #1 best-selling book knows that there's quite a bit different between it and the movie, and that's exactly what we're going to be talking about today. We'll start off with what I consider to be the biggest difference between the book and the movie, which is the doll with button eyes. In the book, there is no doll. It is never mentioned. But in the movie, it plays a huge role in how the other mother finds her victims, studies their lives, and eventually tricks them into becoming her children. In the movie, the doll shows up everywhere. It's constantly watching Coraline, studying her movements, and learning about her life. If you watch carefully, you can actually see the doll move. It watches her through the window, and its position changes as Coraline moves around her room. I absolutely love these attention to details. But there's no mention of dolls in the book. Even the other mother's obsession with button eyes plays a much bigger role in the movie than it does in the book. In the book, the button eyes are mentioned sporadically and briefly. They almost seem to act as sort of a countermeasure to Coraline's magic stone. In the movie, Coraline gets the magic stone after meeting the other mother, but in the book she gets it before. And from the beginning, the other mother's evil presence and magic powers seem to be repelled by the magic stone. It's almost as if the book other mother had to suggest sewing buttons into Coraline's eyes, so that she could overcome the magic of the stone. That's all speculation, of course. It's possible that they just emphasized the button eyes because it was creepier and more visually interesting. But the difference is definitely noticeable. The third major difference between the book and the movie is the character of Chibi, or more accurately, the lack of character of Chibi in the book. Wyborn, or Chibi for short, is a character made up exclusively for the movie, and he takes on many roles. He helps with foreshadowing, for instance when he shows Coraline the well. He becomes a friend to Coraline and acts as a comic relief character in many instances. He's the first one to warn Coraline that her house is dangerous, and he's the one who gives her the doll. In the book, it almost seems as if Wybi's roles are separated and played by different characters. For example, in the book, Mrs. Spink and Miss Forcible are the first ones to warn Coraline that she's in danger. All in all, I think Wybi was a great addition to the story. He adds quite a bit of depth to Coraline as a character. He also adds a very interesting connection to the house and the other mother through his grandmother, whose sister disappeared. Another element made up entirely for the movie. The fourth and final major difference between the book and the movie is something I touched on a little bit earlier, and that is the story structure as a whole. In the book, Coraline's story is much more linear, while in the movie, the main plot points jump around a bit more. In the book, Coraline only goes to the other mother's house twice. The first time, she's offered a wonderful life and asked to put buttons in her eyes in order to stay. The second time, her parents have already been kidnapped, and the full evil of the other mother's nature has been revealed. In the movie, Coraline visits the other mother's world 3 times, and it isn't until the second trip that she learns about the button eyes. In between movie Coraline's first and second trips to the other mother's world, we find scenes from the early chapters of the book. Because of this, early book character development is interspersed throughout the movie. In my opinion, it also allows the movie to have slightly more action. Leaving the scenes as they were from book to movie may have made things slightly less visually interesting for younger audiences. But again, that's personal speculation. They may have changed it for any reason. It's just an interesting thing to point out. There were also what I consider to be several smaller differences between the book and the movie. In the book, Coraline's world has mice and a mice circus, but in the other mother's world, the mice have changed into rats and they share her evil button eyes. In the movie, they stay mice in both worlds. Another difference was with the lost children. In the book, one of the lost children has wings, butterfly wings to be exact. This implies that the other mother has been kidnapping kids since even before the time of fairies. The fact that a fairy's child was able to fall for the other mother's evil scheme is particularly spooky in my opinion. Fairies are usually the ones running these schemes. And lastly, but certainly not least, is a scene that has caused quite a few kids a number of nightmares over the years. And I am of course referring to the basement scene, otherwise known as the other father's death scene. In the movie, the other father falls apart, let's say, during a side quest for one of the children's souls. In the book, the other father's death gets its own chapter, and it's treated as a trap to lure Coraline into the darkness and keep her from finding the other lost souls. It is way scarier and leaves a much bigger impression. And while in both versions the other father tries to fight the other mother and help Coraline, in the book his lack of free will is much more defined. And on that spooky note, I'll call this video to a close. I hope you've enjoyed our little foray into Neil Gaiman's classic children's book. If you'd like to see more of this kind of content, please hit the like button and subscribe. I have a ton of other book-related videos planned, so until next time, keep your pen to the paper and your nose in a book. Bye!